All right. Tonight, a mid 90s film about the mid 70s. What's become a nostalgia film about a nostalgia film, or potentially an anti nostalgia film. The 70s, when some characters long for the past of the 60s and unimagined future of the 80s. The 70s with its cars and hard rock, with Nixon, Watergate, and the end of Vietnam in the background. Richard Linklater has described high school in the 70s as a light prison sentence to be served. There's an ambivalence to the decade, to every decade, to high school, to coming of age, with its rituals, its humiliations, its romance. It's fun, but it's vaguely dystopian, bittersweet, where you want to be older, but you want to stay young. Where you get older, but who you are at heart stays the same age. It's high school with pre Columbine white suburban privilege. It's high school. LIVIN. Tonight, dazed and confused. RickRamos, what say you?
Um, for the past 30 some odd years, this is a film that I don't know, has sat in the back of my head that is it's been a very important film. It was 1993. I was a sophomore at Northwestern, and I remember seeing it in a theater um, because I had heard about it. I had never seen Slacker, but I was becoming more and more aware of the independent film movement that was emerging. I had seen Reservoir Dogs, Bad Lieutenant, and a handful of other films in the Chicago area. And this was a film that I had seen a couple of previews for. Well, I'd seen a preview for, and I really felt like I thought it was a horrible preview because I thought there was a deeper film going on. I thought it was if you watched it, I should have forwarded the trailer to you so that you could watch it beforehand because this was a film that was marketed as a stoner comedy, and it's not that. It's not that at all. People are in it and they're getting high and they're getting drunk, but this is not a film about drugs, drug use, drug culture. This is a film about youth, and it's not even a movie about the 70s. The 70s is a construction. It's the parameters in which the story is told. But you could have told the story in the 80s, in the 60s, the 50s. This is this is a film almost solely about being young and cynical and pessimistic in the way that young people are. But even that is tinged with the optimism of it's going to be better as I get older, which is reasonably disappointing. But I think the magic of this film is, for those of us watching it, is the nostalgia of being young. I grew up in the 80s, um, the late 80s into the early 90s. And when I was watching this movie the first time, it was 93. I was about 19 years old, so I was just a few years older than these guys, these young men and women out of Huntsville, Texas, and I thought, this is not what I knew in high school. But I had started drinking and getting a little bit high here and there. And this movie was kind of like it was kind of like a tease of what might have been. What It was a good time. And I don't mean a good time in just watching it. I'm talking about recognizing how good and meaningful and powerful youth is. And as I watch it now, 30 some odd years later, it really hits me. It really, no, it's not 30 some, is it?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it is.
Jesus Christ, it is 30 some years later. Um, it's, it's, it's a nostalgic look at my own youth. I don't look at it from the perspective as I don't look at this as a 70s film. I look at this as a youth film
Yeah,
that's set in the 70s. And
correct. Yeah,
I think a lot of people get caught up in the 70s, whether it's the music, the cars, the hairstyles, the clothing, the slang. No, this is a movie about being young and free and only marginally aware of what the future is going to hold. And it's a promising film and it's a hopeful film, but it's also a film that is bathed in this understanding what we bring to it as we watch it of how things are not going to work out in that in the manner in which we think. So in some ways it's good. It's in some ways things are going to turn out much worse. In other ways it's going to turn out better. But for the most part it's just going to be. And as I watch the movie, I fall in love with the magic of being young and what it meant to me. Even though I was an old man even back then, there was the I was a young old man. I was I had hope. And watching this movie now, I mean, this is I laughed out loud. I kind of I missed it up a little bit. Not really tearing, but like wow. But I remember who I was hanging out with, the friends that I knew then, the friends and friends that I haven't spoken to in years and probably never will speak to again. Much like the characters in this film, they know these people and they're so important to each other in their present lives as the film is depicted. But they're gonna go off and they're gonna do their own things and they're never gonna see each other again. And there's both there's both a joy and sadness to this movie that I really embrace, and there's an awareness that is put into perspective. Maybe I'm overthinking it. A lot of people would say, "Oh, it's just a good time," and I was like, "No, it's more than a good time. It's a love letter to your youth, and it's Linklater's remembrance of the past." And I gotta love the guy for making this movie. I think it's his masterpiece, and I think a lot of people have. He's made some really good films since then, but this is his masterpiece.
you you always ask me what's my relationship to the film.
Yeah, and this too.
This film,
What were you
this
like
film
14?
was,
Were you like 14?
yeah, man. I watched this shit when I was in between freshman. I mean, when I was in between middle school and high school. I watched it a year later in the summer.
Wow.
So I read it was in the rotation. And I've been saying that a lot about a lot of movies that we've been doing
Hmm.
recently, including Heat. It was one of those that it was. We rented it, and from the first time that we rented it, we fucking rented it like uh, a lot. I've probably seen this movie 50 times, and I probably saw it 40 times then.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I know that.
because yeah, I mean, I've only seen it maybe a handful of times since I was a teenager.
And as I always ask, you've never seen it in a theater, have you?
No, I never saw it in the theater.
See
Um,
that boggles that's sad to me, but it's also like wow, that's uh you're 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 of that generation that got used to, like, you see the importance of seeing a movie in a theater, but by virtue of what was available, it was just natural. I don't know if did you know you were missing out on anything? That's a question for another time. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's a valid question to approach now. But I mean, like, the thing is, it's also like, I mean, I saw Jurassic of this era. I saw Jurassic Park in the theater like over and over and over again. I saw Pulp Fiction in the movie theater over and over. The Natural Born Killers over and over and over again. Um, we saw The Crow. I tell this story a lot. Fucking, it's grandpa's telling the story about when he saw The Crow and he was too young to get in, after his mom dropped him off, with his friends. And she was like, don't embarrass me. Don't die. Don't go to jail. Here's a fistful of quarters and fucking call me when you're ready. And of course I wouldn't. And then she'd get all pissed. And, those are other stories. But it's, this was one that I didn't fucking know about it. And it, we didn't discover it until we saw it in a box. We saw the box on the fucking VHS thing or whatever. And it was like, 4 teenagers, like with the devil horns,
Mm-hmm.
and 3 dudes and an attractive chick. Yeah, and so it was like, all right, and we were so open to whatever the fuck that we would, all right, we're gonna get Faces of Death, we're gonna get this Dazed and Confused thing, and the reason why it jumped out at me is because Dazed and Confused is a Led Zeppelin song.
Okay.
And
yeah.
Yeah, it's a Led Zeppelin song off the first album. And so I was just like, what the fuck is this? But then you can already tell, like, the from the cover you can kind of tell, like, you get a vibe. So it was like, okay. And so I'm watching it summer of '94. And so this is already, for me, and for me, and the way I see the timeline is this is post Nirvana. Because Kurt Cobain had died in '94, and there was already going to be a shift in the music. There was already going to be, like, in rock itself, there was going to be some changes because grunge was going to be in decline, and we were going to go into other shit, which to me was going to be further declined. And MTV was changing because you have reality TV. I was getting into the history of rock and roll. I was learning about other forms of rock music beyond what was on MTV and beyond, like, immediately, like, oh, fucking the Seattle bands and other, like, relevant groups at that time. So my knowledge of rock music is expanding. My knowledge of everything is fucking expanding. My taste in shit is expanding. The movie's going to end up talking about these kids are in the '70s wanting to get Aerosmith tickets, but all I have to do is fucking turn on at my friend's house MTV, and fucking Aerosmith is like, videos are playing then and there with fucking Alicia Silverstone and fucking hot ass Liv Tyler. So it was just like, oh shit, like, you get perspective. And it's like, oh wow, like, fucking almost 20 years ago, me then. And it's like, oh, Aerosmith, like, fucking, like, that's crazy. And then, they have that song Crazy. And so we're, like, commenting on all this shit, and there's also a knowledge of, like, there's a connection, and I've talked about this, to the past in popular culture, because, okay, like, '94 when I'm watching it, the movie's '93, but when I'm watching it, it's like 25 years after Woodstock. So there's a lot of magazines that are talking about that. There's a lot of specials. There's a lot of, like, different shit that's talking about Woodstock. And then so we're like, oh, but this is like fucking, like, we didn't say post Woodstock, but we're like, oh shit, this is like after Woodstock. All right, like, we're piecing together what rock history is in our heads, and how different shit is, like, playing out. And so I'm learning about all this shit. I'm listening to the fucking soundtrack. I get the soundtrack. That's not really my, like, '70s rock is not my thing necessarily, but I'm absorbing all of it. And so I'm that kid who's transitioning from junior high to high school as a freshman. and I'm seeing these like older kids, which I'm not thinking of them as kids, um, just these older dudes and chicks from high school. And I had already like when I was younger, I used to look at the cool kids when because I went to a school it was first grade through eighth grade, and the cool who I thought were the cool kids who were like in the eighth grade, they listened to K Rock, so they listened to like 80s rock. They had the Docs, the fucking bomber jackets. I mean, we had uniforms and bullshit like that, but like they would have the bomber jackets and the Doc Martens is the classic trio of the fucking black, burgundy, or green. Usually, like the chicks wore like the green. They could rock it. Um, and now this was like, all right, this is like the introduction of this kind of rock, and also weed. And so this film, along with another one called The Stone Age, which is nowhere near as good, but to me was like the B side of this film, and also fucking got rented it constantly. These kind of set the tone for me for high school, and it was like a roadmap of, and I mean, my high school didn't have a football team. My high school, I mean, they had basketball, but like that wasn't my thing. Um, it was gonna be, it was gonna be drugs, girls, and rock music, and I mean books and reading and stuff like that too, and writing. But like all uh, fed by that type of shit. And so for me to watch this movie is like, yeah, I'm watching these kids in high school, but I'm also watching myself in high school. And the 70s is an interesting transition between the social upheaval of the 60s and the materialism and neoliberal fucking bullshit that would become the 80s. And so, like, the film isn't about the 70s, but it also is. And it's interesting, like, what it depicts in the 70s and what it doesn't depict in the 70s, because it's not pretending to be um, something else. It's not pretending to be. It's not a documentary, but it does through the cast. Like now watching it, I'm like, well, before I get into that, like, still working on my relationship with it. It's at the time I definitely saw myself as one of those freshman kids. Um, and in terms of like what was, I guess, aspirational, what I did admire, which it's supposed to be that, is one of the main characters, Randall Pink Floyd. Um, he's the star football player, and he's supposed to be signing this like pledge that he's going to avoid drugs and so-called bad behavior while he plays on the football team. And he has this moral dilemma about, like, yeah, I want to play on the football team, I like it, but there's something about signing that pledge that feels like signing his soul away to him.
Yeah.
And I remember like fuck, is he gonna sign it? Because I like you at that age, even I got it. You know what I mean? Like you get it when you're a fucking teenager. You're like, fuck that pledge, you know. um, and then now watching it, and I'm just like, it felt so fucking satisfying. I know he doesn't sign it, but I hadn't seen this movie in a long enough time that when he doesn't sign it and he throws it back, he wads it up and throws it, and it bounces off his coach's chest. And I was like, that felt so fucking good.
Yeah, that's one win. That's one win.
That's one fucking win.
And that's before your
one
cynicism
fucking
takes over and says, you ain't gonna get too many more of those.
No,
You're just
because
not.
like, how many more of those are you going to be signing for the rest of your fucking life? Because like, modernity itself is fucking a pledge to fucking follow that. You know what I mean? Like, um, and there's very little room to escape that. Um, you know what I mean? And some of those pledges, like in the grand scheme, are very much wanted and necessary. I mean, I pledge to stop at the red light so that you can stop at the red light when you have it and I can go and we don't fucking kill each other. I pledge that. Um, and etc. But you do run through these archetypes in the film does a good job of now moving out of my, I guess, relationship to it. And before, I mean, we're bouncing in and out of that, but like getting into kind of like now the different, I guess, different characters that we could aspire to be or that we could see ourselves in, or how that affects the audience. When you get into character, like, and it's interesting because it touches on like Gilligan's Island and like the hot like chicks versus the hot guys, and like according to like these chicks who are having a mini conversation about that. It is one of those things where ensembles in and of themselves they just lead to archetypes, whether it's like TV, fucking Golden Girls, Sex in the City, whatever, fucking Gilligan's Island, whatever. You have these archetypes. In high school, you had that fucking the characters are very archetypal, but at the same time they feel very real.
Oh yeah.
Rather than just stereotypes that are they just put a face on it. You've got the Randall Floyd, the good guy football star who wants to be true to himself. He's kind of like the ideal in the film, and he does a good job of like emanating that vibe. You've got the fucking jock friends. You've got the Pickford character who's like the cool guy with the cool girlfriend who's going to have a house party. You've got the bully, Ben Affleck, who's closeted and sadistic. You go ahead.
No, it's just yeah.
I mean,
he might be.
It's there.
Oh, yeah.
It's there. He's just too into part of the. So the premise of the film itself, if you're not into, you haven't found yourself into this movie yet, fucking go to the video store now.
Yeah.
Get on your bike, go to the fucking video store, and rent this fucking movie.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't recommend a movie highly enough. I think it's a film that really speaks to the generations, and I think every person can watch this movie and remember something. I could put this movie. I don't think my old man has ever seen it. I don't think my parents have ever seen it, but I'm sure I could put it on, and we could have a discussion afterwards about the people that they remember growing up. I think you could do it with your mom. I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, we want to imagine that our shit is unique and has never occurred before, when in truth it's all variations on it's the same story with different hairdos. It's all happened before. Nothing is unique to your experience, and that's the beauty of this film, is that it captures a kind of truth. Now when you say he's closeted, that's possible. I lean more towards he's just a sadistic fuck. I think he's just a sadistic, mean-spirited, nasty fuck.
Hand in glove. What's up? He quotes fucking, I think it's Hand in Glove, and he fucking quotes Deliverance.
He does quote Deliverance. He does.
And it tracks because he would have seen Deliverance. He would have been able to have watched it. And he's just too into paddling fucking
kids,
sweet ass or whatever, however he fucking describes it. Yeah. And I'm just kind of like, yeah, no, like, and talking about popping cherries, calling everybody a homo, like he's closeted. Um, like he's closeted as fuck, and he's now in the Trump administration.
I'm not completely
Um,
sold, but
he's
I
been
do
Trump's
lean to,
cabinet
yeah. I mean, but there's also Linklater is a what makes one of the things that makes Linklater great as a director is that he gives a lot of room for interpretation to his actors. And I've heard interviews with a lot of these actors about, I mean, like one of the things he did was he would make mixtapes. This is back when you could make a mixtape, right? He would make
for sure.
mixtapes for each actor on the music that they would be listening to. So like this is very good. Like Wooderson, McConaughey, that scumbag character, and he's it's weird because he's kind of cool when you're young, but you look at him now and you're like, what a scumbag! But at the
Yeah,
same time, there's
totally.
a charm to it, and
And they call him one of the characters, Pink Floyd. I think calls him would have been, and and it's kind of like wow, like that's looking into the future,
well,
like a future perspective.
one of them also says, um, eventually you're going to go to jail.
Well, yeah,
You know, when they're standing outside the Emporium and he
yeah,
starts
for the
talking about,
statutory rape.
yeah, and that's when he says, man, they're just, you know, that's the famous line, I get older and they stay the same, you know, and you know, but that character was listening to, who do you think he was listening to? He was listening to Nugent. Isn't that fucking on point? Isn't that exactly
It is,
like, it's
but
just so
it's
fucking horrible.
it's interesting because I just a couple weeks ago, um, the universe plays all these fucked up tricks on me, but and only me, but it but the universe provided this. I was at a fucking used bookstore with Leslie, and I see this thing, and I'm like, "What the fuck is this?" I thought it was the script,
Hmm.
and it's got the cover. It says "Dazed and Confused," inspired by the screenplay by Richard Linklater. It says compiled by Richard Linklater, Denise Montgomery, and friends.
Oh yeah, I
And
got
it's
that book. Yeah, I haven't read it, but
you have
I
that
got,
book?
yeah, I have that book. I haven't. It's sitting on the
It's
shelf
like a
of
fucking
unread books. Yeah.
it's like a magazine,
Hmm.
um, and it's a fucking like kind of like a yearbook
Hmm.
meets scrapbook, um, and it has profiles on the fucking characters.
Okay, that's different from what I got. That was different. What I have is there was a time when they would publish a book 20 years after the fact or 15, 20 years after the fact, and it was just a collection of interviews with the
Mm.
actors and the filmmakers. But what you're talking about is, yeah, I think they did something like that with Animal House, where it was like a yearbook. Yeah, I've heard of that. I've never seen it. Did you buy it?
Yeah, yeah, but it was a fucking dollar. I fucking grabbed it, and I said, like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah, yeah.
And I knew that this episode was on the calendar, and I said, fucking, like, this is crazy,
Hmm.
because I've never seen this, I've never heard about it, I know there's an oral history of Dazed and Confused, which I haven't read or bought.
That's the one
Um,
I'm talking about. That's the one that I have. Yeah.
okay, and so yeah, I mean, I get it, Nugent, but it also like he himself puts in here like the Stones, the Who, Doobies, Sabbath,
Hmm.
Black Oak, Arkansas, Marshall Tucker, and others. Um, and it's kind of like, and then the Nugent shit, yeah. I mean, like Stranglehold plays that. We'll get into the soundtrack in another episode, but um, I mean that's a prominent track, and yeah, it pun intended tracks with, as you said, yeah, fucking scumbag listen to a fucking scumbag. Um, and the fucking, I mean, there's also the I get older, they stay the same age tracks with Aerosmith too. You know what I mean? Like, for all of you
Yeah.
who know about that, and if you
That one you have
don't,
to do a little bit
fucking
more digging. It's not
not
you don't
much.
have to you don't have to dig deep, but they were never as nobody's as front about it as that scumbag Nugent. You know.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's and rock has that fucking. I
Yeah.
mean, Motorhead has fucking
Absolutely.
jailbait and all that shit.
Hmm.
And it was definitely a thing. But you get, yeah, you get these characters. You get Oh, and before I run down that, I started getting into basically the premise is it's a fucking, like you said, it's a youth movie about the last day of school um, for freshmen. I mean, junior high kids who are leaving eighth grade going to become freshmen, and juniors who are going to go and become seniors now. Um, and what happens on that day? Is there going to be a house party? Are they going to end up having a party at some fucking like tower or whatever, at a park or whatever it is, and the hope of going to Houston to buy Aerosmith tickets, when you had to actually fucking go line up somewhere to do that. And I watching this movie in '94. It's the next year I'm gonna be standing in line to get fucking Page and Plant tickets, and that's my first concert. Um, and then it's gonna be the Sabbath reunion a couple years later, and shit like that, and so it's all of that, and part of that process is the hazing ritual that the now seniors, both male and female, play on the incoming freshmen. And for the males, it's paddling the, the freshman dudes, and for girls, it's this whole fucking like covering them in condiments and fucking talking shit to them, and Parker Posey calling them bitches, and and then within that, you have characters like the smart, like nerdy characters who are the social conscience of the film,
Yeah.
talking shit about everything that's happening, and so running down the characters, yeah, you've got the cool kids, you've got the fucking the bully, you've got the Slater, the stoner friend, you've got Melvin, who in this book, Melvin's the one black guy who Linklater describes as living in the spaces between the white suburban world of his classmates and the black middle class world of his parents.
Yeah.
You've got Wooderson, the Matthew McConaughey, so-called cool older character that's all about the cars and the beer and it's the guy who peaks in high school and like or just after, and that's gonna be he becomes basically Al Bundy, like that is gonna be that guy. Newhouse and Tony are the socially conscious nerds. They're the commentary. They're the fucking the the Newhouse character is codes as strongly Jewish. They even like one other character calls them
Woodward
and Bernstein,
yeah.
because it's the Watergate shit. But then he throws it back and he's like, "Then you must be Deep Throat."
Yeah.
Referring to Deep Throat being the informant for Woodford and Bernstein, but also the fucking porn film. And Deep Throat just cocksucker. You've got Clint, the fucking asshole who fights at parties, who we always used to call him Chris Cornell because he looked like Chris Cornell. Mitch Kramer's the freshman baseball kid who basically is us. He's basically who the audience, and he ultimately will become Pink Floyd, Randall Floyd. Of the females, it's Darla, who is Parker Posey, plays it wonderfully. She's the mean girl. Michelle is Mila Jovovich. She's like the quiet, like stony, fucking pretty girlfriend. Kay is the tough brunette feminist chick. Jody is the pretty nice girl brunette, who's the counterpart of Randall Floyd. Siobhan is the hot blonde. Simone is the bimbo blonde. Cynthia is the redheaded smart, like nerd girl. And Sabrina is the freshman girl. And so you have all of these. Plus, you have others. You have the little friends of Mitch, the other little junior high assholes, including the one kid who's like making out with some chick, but then the stupid friends who aren't making out with anyone are like, let's go, this sucks. He leaves the girl, and then there's a shot where the chick is just left there, and she has this fucking awkward expression.
Yeah.
It's just like fuck. And you just feel bad for her, but you're also like for that kid. You're like, don't fucking listen to these morons. Stay with the girl. You know.
I was thinking the same thing, but I also thought for her, you lucked out. You know, because I've always felt once they show your true colors, if whether it's
That's
they're an
true. I mean,
asshole or weakness,
100%,
get rid of that
100%.
motherfucker.
But at the same time, it's kind of like
Hmm.
all these people are just kids, and they're fucking like they don't know what the fuck they're doing.
But
And
that's when you learn.
um,
So no, you're absolutely right. But there's an understanding where um, learn it earlier so you don't have to learn it earlier so you don't have to go through what I went through. So you don't have to be hurt
sure,
like I did. That kind of
sure.
shit where it's like I've had that conversation and I'm like, you know, and I'd have to stop myself many times, like stop being a fucking old man. Who gives a shit? Let them make the mistakes. Who the fuck cares?
I
Whatever's
mean,
gonna happen.
yeah, and
You know,
and it's one of those things where it's like we're watching this shit fucking decades later, and it's like there's someone out there who was that guy who always is like, fuck, like I shouldn't have fucking left that girl.
yeah, yeah.
Um, you know what I mean? Just and it's just them making out, like that's it. Um, but you know, or likewise, there's gonna be someone, whether it's a guy or a girl, who gets left there, and that now is going to set the tone for the rest of their fucking relationships for the rest of their lives,
Yeah.
and they may not even know that. And it's
Oh,
just crazy because this is just fucking the things that happened to us in fucking high school.
well, it's the kind of thing where it just you're never aware of the lessons that you're learning while you're learning. I mean, it's something that it's
If
like,
you're
oh
learning,
wow, yeah. If you're learning them, I mean, I like I've had these conversations with like you and I have a certain level of conversations that go back 15 years. We were talking a little bit about that before we got on the mic. But think about how many times you've talked to your kindergarten friends, your 3 or 4 guys that you know for that long, that your brothers, where it's like, oh shit, we're gonna tell that story again. But
mm-hmm.
you tell that story again, number one, because it's funny, number two, because it was formative, and number three, because it was a lesson that you learned, even if you learned it too late. And that's what this movie is. It's all the lessons that we learned when we were. None of this shit is going to make sense to any of these kids until they're 10, 15 years on, and it's so in keeping with the mindset of that time. Even when you have a stoned out guy like Slater, he's on point when he's saying, "Man, when when I get to, it's not quantity, it's quality, and when I get to
Yeah,
college, all the chick." It was like I every guy that I knew thought that. Every guy that wasn't getting laid in high school said that, and we all believed it because that's hope. That's the otherwise, what the fuck are we doing? Because you have to have something that
right,
you hold on to, and as pessimistic and cynical as you might be, the fact that you don't eat a bullet every fucking day means there's a little bit of hope. And I look at like these kids are going to be they're going to be older, they're going to get fat, they're going to have their kids, they're going to rationalize their marriages and parenthood um in a way that is more them trying to convince themselves than anybody that you're talking to. Those of you who have talked to your friends with kids, you hear it all the time. You hear it about how it's like, oh well, you know, I was talking to you about this before we were on the mic. I was like, they'll bitch and moan about their fucking relationships, their marriages and their kids for 58, 59 minutes, and then that last minute. But I can't imagine life without them. It's like you're just trying to justify that shit to yourself. You're not convincing me of anything. And there's not a one of these people that's going to. Maybe there's one or two people in this story that'll escape what the future is, and that's kind of like, yeah, there is having hope in the future, but there's also escaping what is inevitable because so much of life is the job, marriage,
I mean, yeah, I mean,
kids. You know.
the first thing that I get from all of that is like the escaping the future. Okay, Wooderson's character, Matthew McConaughey's character, he has this thing where he says, "All right, all right, all right." now it's become part of the mythology, and it is based on that. Um, in a live Doors live show, some Doors live recording, there's there's a part where Jim Morrison is like, "All right, all right, all right, all right," and Matthew McConaughey, that came to him, and so now his rendition of that is now on some level iconic. Um, and the guys that fucking we grow up with or we see or whatever, or the rock stars or whatever it is that they do escape what you're talking about, the future, those are the ones that die. Jim Morrison escaped the future because he died. He didn't fucking live long enough to not be cool. I mean, and look, side note, like there were a lot of people from that era who, Dave Crosby and all these people who from Laurel Canyon who were like, he's a fucking poser, fucking asshole. He wasn't cool. But these are all assholes who are some famous or somewhat famous on drugs, whatever.
Yeah.
But the outside looking in, like, okay, the Lizard King icon is in a pop culture marketing way is cool. But Jim Morrison didn't become, or Kurt Cobain is cool. Chris Novoselic, like, just in a superficial way, you're like, oh, he was cool when he was the bassist of Nirvana. You see him now, and like, if you don't know who he is, he's just some like middle-aged fucking dude with a mustache and thinning hair on top who's really tall, who seems really like nice. And it's like, that's it. You know what I mean? Like that's who we're doomed on some level to become or not. You know what I mean? And the scariest part is like, um, of that setup where it's like these cool high school people become the Al Bundys of the world. Um, they bitch and complain, and we all do it to a degree. But then that last, 59 minutes and that last minute of that hour is going like, well, I wouldn't have it any other way type of bullshit. It's kind of like, well, how much of that is the, I mean, it's all rationalization, but how much of it is also not wanting to face the fact that like it would be even scarier to be what we think of as free, because what the fuck does that look like? Um, and what I like now, seeing it older, and the older I get, the more I like that, is seeing and relating to these characters who are more introspective, more nerdy, more socially awkward, who actually have enough distance to call out all of the fucked up shit that's happening in the film.
Yeah.
That, and this is what is, it's one of those things about what Linklater is talking about in his ambivalent take on it, is that it looks cool, but like as it happens in high school, it's kind of like we tend to look back and either we have a horrible time, or a lot of times compared to now, we think back and these are the best years of my fucking life. I mean, we're discovering ourselves. Yeah, we're fucking embarrassed. We're pimples. We're fucking bullied, whatever.
Yeah.
And all within the confines. And this is a separate branch of the conversation, but like also, this is, as I said in the beginning, or I touched on briefly, is like passingly, is like this is if you are able to have the privilege of having a fucking high school, having a fucking that, I mean, it becomes a prison where it's a small town where everyone knows each other, but at the same time, like, again, this is way fucking, even the making of the movie is shortly before Columbine. Um, there are people out here that fucking their high school is fucking dodging bullets literally, either in an active shooter situation or in gang violence of the 80s and 90s too. Menace to Society High School is different from this shit. This is a white suburban privileged fucking setup. Where the worst thing is like, oh, someone like you get into a fist fight. We don't live in that world anymore. Now it's like someone can come and just kill you and all your friends. So there's also like even me watching this, there's a nostalgia for a time before that, and like that wasn't my experience in high school, but like shortly, like it was in that at the end of that decade, that it was the experience of us as a collective, um, and still is. And I mean, like I'm sure there's a school shooting happening potentially right now as we speak, um, or as one of you listens to this, and if not, yesterday or tomorrow, unfortunately. But I like the commentary that some of these characters are having on the hazing, the 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 these rituals, how fucked up these behaviors are, and the fact that these are also these are like 16, 17-year olds, 16, 17, 18-year olds that are like they're they're realizing this. They're not just all going along with it, and it's not all like a great experience for everyone. Like Newhouse's character is having to figure out like, hey, well, this isn't. I mean, I got punched in the face, but I mean, it's like how to. In the end, and he's trying to compare himself to fucking Hemingway, um, and like I see myself in that guy, but I also saw myself in Slater, and I also saw myself in other characters, and it's one of those mixed kind of bags where it's like you become a a, a, a compiled character as you grow older. And the idea I would think is to become to unify these different aspects instead of just being, in the psychological kind of like Jungian type of sense, rather than just being like, oh, the stoner guy who stayed the stoner guy. There are different elements that are positive from different perspectives, and you look back at these things, and it's like you see and you connect to different characters in different ways. You know what I mean? Like,
Sure.
and it's not just Revenge of the Nerds or whatever, where it's like this group versus that group, and now it's like it's like this class warfare thing. It's all mixed, and at the end of the day, they are coexisting in a way that's actually not that fucked up. And even though it's not like the chick teacher who she codes as like the MILF teacher in the film, even she's young in the movie in the world of that movie in '76, but she's looking back on it and saying like her fucking shit was like the Democratic Convention of '68 was bitching. And then the bell rings and she's telling the kids like, remember why we celebrate 4th of July, because a bunch of slave owning white male aristocrats or whatever she said didn't want to pay their taxes, and then school's out for summer. Um, so even within the film, there's calls to that nostalgia for their past, or what they imagine was the past, and then again this kind of like look towards, oh fuck, like if the coolness of decades like skips, if it's skipping decades, it's like the '60s were cool, the '70s suck, the '80s are gonna be bitching. And I mean, like, that's what's funny is if like the movie comes out in the '90s and you're going like, Reagan, right? But it's all fucking like it's all perspective.
But what is that? That's hope. Yeah, the '70s
Well, yeah,
suck because I'm in it right
Star
now.
Wars, New Hope.
It's like I look at it as so I'm in my 50s now, 51 years old, and
Which
when
is
I went,
crazy.
yeah, it was insane. It's just fucking crazy, and I'm feeling it now in a way that I never have before. Physically, I mean, psychologically and mentally, yeah, I've always been this age to a degree. I can
But you
exaggerate
grew
that.
into it.
Yeah, but yeah, I'm physically, and I look like the guy that I've always been to a degree. But I got I got a phone call from a friend about 4 or 5 months ago, and I started thinking about this while I was watching this movie last night. I got a phone call from a friend that I hadn't spoken to in probably 25 years. So, um, she calls and she says that she has something for me, and she's mailing it to me. And
It's a kid
no,
in the mail.
yeah,
It's
she
your
had
son.
she had kept letters of mine from when I first moved out to LA, or just like right before I was moving out to LA, probably like 98 to 2000. I was writing a lot. I was writing these letters, and I was talking about the experience there and what I was doing, and she sent them to me. She kept them. I don't know why she kept them, but she kept them. And
Mhm.
she didn't want to throw them away, so she thought it would be a weird little surprise for me. So I read them, and I'm embarrassed by them
Of
to a
course.
degree.
It's cringy as fuck.
It's
Yeah,
cringy as fuck,
I'm sure.
but this is what I admire about, and this is me blowing my own horn and telling myself how great I am. There was a flow to them, number one, but also there was a passion in the anger and the youthful resentment. And she said, because she we were talking a little bit about Northwestern, and I was talking about how I loved it, and she was like, "You don't remember it the way it happened. You hated every minute of it." I was like, "Yeah, of course I did. I hated every fucking minute that I was there, but it was some of the best times of my life. It was friendships that, and you and I have talked this about friendships that die. And there's a part of me at a time I would have been very resentful and hateful to those people that were no longer part of my life, that had let me down because the friendship ended, or I felt like they all kinds of little factors like that. But at this point, I also value the friendship for what it was, and I recognize how important those friendships were to me at the time. So I don't have the resentment or the anger at the people that I'm no longer friends with that I once did. I feel like that's what I needed at that time, and I'm so thrilled that I have those memories. And whatever Northwestern was, which was this fucking very conservative, very white, very upper class, and a place that I definitely, on paper, did not belong. As in most situations, I gravitated towards people who had similar views and, maybe didn't hate it as much as I did, but there was this understanding that this is what it was. And it was formative. And I survived it. What I mean is, I didn't drink myself to death. I didn't fall into a drug habit, or let it beat me. And I think that's a lot of what this film is the year before that starts to happen. You know what I mean? Where because
Yeah.
college is this thing that you slowly realize. Maybe you realize it, or you don't realize it, but it's there. This is not going to be what I think it is, and my life is not going to be what I imagine it to be. And I'm going to be, 50 years old doing a job that I fucking hate. But I also I lived a life that at least took the chances that I wanted to take, so that this this resignation to financial and professional failure is at least, hey, you put it all out there. So there's something to that. There's something reassuring, and there's something that is like, yeah, fuck it, you know. And that's the way I watch this film. I watch this film with a certain sense of looking at it from a narrative perspective and enjoying the characters because they are archetypes like you described, but they're very real. You knew these guys. I knew some of these guys in high school. I knew some of these guys in college. I know them now at the job that I have. It's really interesting to watch them. The chick that used to be fine and is holding on to that. The guy that president of the student union or leader, captain of the football team, the cheerleader. You could see all this shit in people, and I think it's
Yeah.
fascinating.
I mean, yeah. I mean, it's like, you think about it, and it's like, how many of us can define ourselves by, and this is super simplistic, but like, how many of those pledges did we either sign or not sign? Um, for better or for worse, to our detriment or to our success.
Yeah.
I like thinking, I'm like, I don't think that it was like, I'm gonna fucking not sign anything. I I don't think it was that for me, but I mean, I definitely was of that kind of mindset. And I very much like spent a lot of time not signing those things and throwing them back, um, and I paid my price for that.
Yeah.
And it's what it is. You know what I mean? Like, to think of that. I recently, now that you say about the letters, it was earlier in the week that my friend is cleaning out his dad's house.
Mm-hmm.
And we know what that means. And he sent me a picture, and he's like, "Blast from the past," and it's a collection of poems from this time period when I would have seen this movie. Um, and that friend and I go back to when fucking 6, 7 years old. But we were like fucking, at that point we had already known each other half of our lives at fucking 14.
Yeah.
And it's this collection of poems, like this first collection of poems that I had like written and I had like put into this like little collection. I had already had that impulse, and I had already been, a nun had sent me and my mom to the psychologist because of my writings, and the psychologist was like, "Do you know what this is?" And I've told this story before. I'm going to tell it again, Grandpa.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's like, "Do you know what this is?" And I'm just like, "These are this journal that told us to write." And so I'm writing these things in this. It's what I wrote. You know what I mean? Like, it's what I fucking wrote, man. And and he's like, "These are poems," and I hadn't thought of them as necessarily that. I was like, "Oh yeah, I want to write poems or whatever the fuck." So he sends me this picture of this thing, and I know exactly what it is. And I was like, "Okay, yeah, do me a favor and hold on to that so I can get it next time, and then I can get rid of the evidence of its existence." Because I know it's gonna be fucking, because this is like the beginnings.
Yeah.
But it's also of the beginning things. It's the stuff that I wanted to like compile that I thought was like the good shit. So I'm just like, it's gonna be so bad to look at it. Um, but it'll be interesting to briefly look at. Of course, I disavow whatever is in there, and I probably will burn it. Um, but it's one of those things where it's kind of like, yeah, it's like looking at fucking like high school pictures, or you think about different shit, and you have this image in your head.
Yeah.
And then you have this other person, like your friend is one of the characters that's like, that's not how it fucking happened.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And of course, I mean, their shit is skewed because of their shit, but like, this person's a little bit more like historical because he's like, I saved this shit. Like, um, it's interesting, and to watch the concept, something like that. It's kind of like, um, and it's been years since I've watched Coppola's The Outsiders.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And obviously that seems way cheesier than this. But any kind of time you have those, or we did it with Doom Generation, or we did it with these other Go and these other films we've been watching, or you can do it with fucking The Outs. You can do it with like 16 Candles and
I think the movie
The
that you're
Breakfast
thinking of
Club.
is Stand By Me.
Well, you can do it with Stand By. I hadn't thought about that one
You
yet,
haven't
but
thought about
yeah,
that
you
one?
can definitely do it.
I think
I mean,
that's
not
one that really encapsulate like that time period of crossing over from being a kid to being the men
they're
that
all
we
like
would
that.
become, the men and women that we would become, that coming of age period where you realize life is not life is not going to be this magical it's not going to be all good times. It's going to be a lot of pain. It's going to be some
And
good.
responsibility.
Of what?
And responsibility, and
And
that's why you get
responsibility.
like
Yeah.
Fight Club is like an attempt to fucking go back,
Hmm.
you know, like to you long for fucking delinquency, among other fucking things. But
Yeah.
it's like there are those films too, where it's like you want to get older because you want the freedoms that provides, but then it comes with all these fucking responsibilities, and then you want to go back to become younger. And so you're having your fucking quarter life crisis. And if you're a rock star, maybe you'll die at that time. And then you have your fucking midlife crisis, and then that's when you get into whether it's like a Fight Club type of thing or a fucking American Beauty type of thing. And we talked about this fucking 11 years ago when I jumped in and we were talking about masculinity in film and how much of that is like these desires um, that 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 we have, and how much of it is like socially um, constructed, and what we are told and what we tell ourselves, what these different stages are supposed to be. Um, and right now, socially, like it's all fucking coming undone because um, I just saw something on Instagram that it showed the Simpsons house, and it said something along the lines of like
What's
when
Simpson's
this
house? The
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 Simpsons the Simpsons house,
the
the
cartoon?
house from the Simpsons.
I don't know. You meant O.J. Simpson, and we were looking at the bloody porch. I didn't know what you were talking about.
Fair enough. I
That's it.
like that.
That's.
Fair enough.
I was like, okay. I'm
That
talking to
was the
you,
house.
so I'm like not really
That was
sure.
the house on on Bundy. No,
Yeah.
that's not that one.
Okay.
No. But since we are fucking in 93, 94, like yes, valid point, and I do enjoy that. No, like the Simpsons, like
I got you.
the Simpsons, right?
Hmm.
They saw the house, and it said something along the lines of like this house was when this came out, it was normal that this, and I've seen stuff like that for speaking of the Bundys,
Yeah.
for like
Married with
Married with
Children.
Children
Yeah.
Bundy house. Um, for it's like when these shows came out, it was normal that these are houses bought on a single income
Hmm.
where the person has like a full ass fucking family, single income, house bought with a person who like doesn't have some kind of professional like high level job. Um, and you can already see rumblings of like, I mean, in Fight Club, it's like, oh, everything that we were told was a lie because ultimately you just become this materialistic consumer and blah blah blah. Now it's kind of like you can't even you can barely be a consumer because like you can't afford shit. Um, and everything that we were told was a lie because what the fuck? You can't afford anything. And you can't afford a fucking house. You can't afford a fucking job. You can't this. You can't that. Fucking
Yeah.
like, um, and so now it's like it's Mark Fisher in his critiques, where it's like, yeah, like the longing for this fucking past, but also like these longings for futures, this ontology shit, where you're all longing for a future that never took place. That's where we're fucking at. And a lot of these people who would be in high school in the 70s who had these hopes for this 80s future and the whole, like, the style of the 80s, which was like this futuristic fucking high tech shit, um, which now we look back on it and it looks fucking old as fuck, um, just because of time. Um, but it was a future that never fucking happened. And we're actually living in closer to what are the dystopian times of these 80s films. You know what I mean? Like, with a political background of the fucking 70s corruption, but worse. Um, so it's like, fuck, like it also puts a spin on Dazed and Confused, which is like, damn, like those were fucking simpler times when all we had was fucking Nixon and Vietnam. Like, damn, to long for Richard Nixon in the days of Trump, you know?
Yeah, that's the thing, and I've said that a
Like
number of times.
that's some fucking perspective.
But it's like
But
also,
that's
yeah, I mean, that's the reality of life. I mean, we've said it a number of times where it's like, can you imagine 15 years ago we were talking about George W. Bush being the worst president in the history of this country, and it doesn't even compare now. I mean, we're looking at such change, but there's also, I think part of the beauty of getting older is recognizing that it was all bullshit all the time, and that it's only getting worse. So it's just I think I think life as it occurs, as you live it, validates a lot of your misgivings and your cynicism. If you were a pessimist and a cynic, which I count myself fully as.
yeah, we know.
Yeah, well, pot and kettle, motherfucker. There's um, I just don't think that there's a part of me that wishes I could go back, but as I look back on it, I think, well, and I'm sure you're very similar, is that we had figured it out when we were young, and the next 25 years or 30 years have just been reinforcing our own negativity, because that's what the world does if you look at it from that perspective. And Woodward and Bernstein in this film are seeing that. And Randall Pink Floyd, he is he's like that. The rest of those guys are just, they're just living, you know.
LIVIN.
LIVIN, man. They're everybody that you work with who just accept those guys are going to become supervisors at your job. They're going to become managers. They're going to bullshit themselves and sell out to the corporate, not even major corporate, like where you could really, no, just the 40 to 80 hour a week bullshit retail job that absorbs you and spits out not even bones. It spits out, it absorbs everything.
Team member
Takes
numbers.
everything
It
from
just
you.
spits out. It just spits out team member numbers. That's it.
Exactly. Yeah, it does. And I feel bad, but at the end of the day, I know that I walk out of my job and I'm still my own man. I did not sign that oath, and I have suffered every fucking day for having done so. That's that's high drama, but I do feel that. Yeah.
This film is, um, it's got a cast that most people you won't know. Um, got Parker Posey, Mila
Yeah,
Jovovich.
tell me what else she's done. if unless you know independent film, who the fuck is Parker
Right.
Posey?
I mean, but I go fucking find out. You know what I mean? Like, go
Absolutely,
fuck.
because she's great and she's wonderful in
Yeah,
this movie. She does not back away from being a complete bitch in this movie. Wipe that face off your head. That's a great fucking
yeah,
line. That's a great line,
bitch. Yeah,
bitch.
and it's not just wipe that face; it's wipe that face off your head, bitch. Um, I mean, yeah, Parker Posey is fucking icon just from this movie.
Yeah, just from this movie.
Because by the time I saw Doom Generation, like the next year,
Mm-hmm.
and I saw her, and I was just like, oh, it was as if she was fucking this super fucking movie star. And it's like, oh, that's that fucking chick from fucking, oh shit,
Yeah.
fucking like, okay, you know.
Yeah.
And but to us, she was. I mean, she's in Suburbia. She's in a lot of like small shit.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, indie shit. But it's, you know, obviously Mila Jovovich hit. And she had a career.
Mm-hmm.
Matthew McConaughey and Ben Affleck are the ones that blew up.
Yeah.
So those are the two that to see this is like Matthew McConaughey's breakout. And he's great in what little he does. He's definitely great. Iconic film lines. Ben Affleck just plays that role really well.
But Affleck is great in this. A
He's great.
lot of people would have been afraid of being that much of a fucking asshole and a self-consumed and, like you say, closeted. It's that level of sadism. I mean, a lot of people say that it's fun to play the villain, and he looks like he's having a great time with this. But this is the kind of thing that could have typecast him and made it impossible for people to look past O'Banion. And he doesn't shy away from it. He's playing a fucking asshole who is mean spirited, sadistic. Um, I I started to say that his description of the character was that he was afraid of his father, and that adds a number of
Mm.
layers to it. Where
Yeah,
it's like,
it sure does. Yeah.
yeah, especially Texas high school football.
Mm-hmm.
That's he does a hell of a lot more with that than Emilio Estevez ever did with The Breakfast Club, a film that I fucking hate. But where John Hughes just over explained and put it out there in this breakdown moment. Ben Affleck embodies all of that. And I love that.
Yeah.
I love what he
Yeah.
does in this film. And I'm not a huge fan of his, but I do appreciate professionalism and what he does and what he brings to certain
Yeah.
films. And this is definitely one of them. First film. This is the first film for a lot of these people. And a lot of people in
Yeah.
this film you don't see. Maybe you see a little bit of TV here. Rory Cochrane, you see on a little bit of TV here and there. Nicky Katt passed
Adam
away
Goldberg.
last year. Adam Goldberg would, yeah. Michael, what's it? Anthony Rapp, you would see in a couple of things here and there. He went back to the stage, but this was, can you imagine the yearbook that this must have been to all of these actors who, a lot of them talk about how it was never as good as this because, first of all, you had Linklater, who was a director who had no idea what he was doing. I recommend you picking up the Criterion Blu-ray of this film, and then watching the making of documentary where they go back to the 10th anniversary. Where it was before South by Southwest. It was they had a screening of this film at the Water Tower or whatever that fucking thing was, and a lot of them came back for it, and it's really interesting to hear them talk about this movie, you know, you being in theater, me being in stand up and auditioning, it's it's on point on what the business was and how so
Mm,
many of them were disappointed by it, but also they have this like when you book the job, nothing is as good as Dazed and Confused because you had a director who was very open to suggestion, who was changing the film as they were making it. And that you can do that on a film like this because people ask, what is this film about? Well, this film isn't really about anything. This film is about being young and the the openness that each one of these characters has towards the future. That whether or not Randall Floyd signs that paper, whether or not Wiley Wiggins becomes a part of this crew, or Sabrina, finds her identity with these groups. Not all of that is; those are just little bits that a film is being built on. This film is
yeah,
about being young, being hopeful, and understanding that early understanding that it's not going to be what you think. In a weird way, it's kind of a tragedy in that sense, but it's it's the most honest and open film that I've ever seen about what it is to be grown. I think it's the most, probably along with The Bad News Bears, it's probably the most honest film about youth and growing up.
that's interesting.
I think that's what I think. That's when I watch it. It's years ago when we did The Tree of Life. I said that's the greatest film about childhood, and I can't explain why. This film, I can explain exactly why this film is the best coming of age film that I've ever seen. It's on point. It's honest. It doesn't shy away from the negative. It's not nostalgic at the expense of the truth. It's and it's not trying to portray the 70s in a nostalgic way. It's setting the this if you didn't know better, you could watch this film and think they might have shot this in the 70s. That's the way I feel about it. I feel if I didn't know the actors and if I didn't know movies and I didn't have the history of
Yeah,
this film, I could in a lot of ways like when we watched Black Dynamite. If you don't know any better, a lot of that movie looks like looks like a 70s black exploitation films, even though it's tongue in cheek, making fun
sure.
of the genre and the idiosyncrasies of the films of that time. But both with Black Dynamite and Dazed and Confused, there is an overwhelming respect and love for both the films that influenced it and the time in which it's set.
Yeah,
It's not like, oh, look at how fucked up they dressed. No, it's these motherfuckers were cool. This was your mom and dad.
yeah,
And you don't want to admit that to yourself, that your mom and dad had these moments. Your mom and dad were the same as you, same as me, and this is who they became. And I love
yeah.
this.
It's crazy because I remember doing the math, and it was like, oh fuck, like mom was 30 when this movie was happening. You know what I mean? Like, fuck, goddamn. You know what I mean?
They're like, yeah, fuck.
Like that's fucking crazy. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like,
My mom was
and
24. In 76, my mom was
yeah,
24. Can you believe that
yeah.
shit?
It's just,
That's crazy, huh?
it's yeah, it's fucking nuts. And you're just thinking like, whoa. It's the way that you, again, on social media, you see these things that they're like, oh. the 90s to now is like fucking when you were whatever age and you think back on the 50s type of
Yeah.
shit, and you go and they gives you that perspective, and you think the 50s is like how many light years fucking away.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the flattening of culture
Yeah.
that really fucks with it too, is because like nowadays people, I mean, do people even know what the fuck, how to interpret or how to imagine what something from the 70s looks like?
Yeah.
If you can think of like a 70s living room or shag carpet or any of this
Mm-hmm.
other shit versus 80s or versus or you know, a lot of shit you see it now, like 90s shit is coming back. You see these kids with some fucking like baggy as fuck pants, um and like, and it's like super early 90s or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and but everything just kind of like looks the same. um and so it's that, and again, like we kind of not avoided, but we haven't really got into the music yet, because we're going to do that next
Next week.
time.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about the music of the film specifically and really get into that, and so much of the vibe is always going to be driven by the music.
It's a good
And it,
starting point for that kind of thing, to examine how popular music, not necessarily
popular
orchestral,
music, yeah.
soundtrack
Yeah,
music. We're talking about,
not a
yeah,
score, but a
yeah, not a
soundtrack.
score, soundtrack, really, which, you know, we're going to talk about. It started with Scorsese. I think it started with Scorsese.
It started with Kenneth Anger.
Did it start with Kenneth Anger? Okay, all
Yeah,
right, okay.
and that influenced Scorsese. That
Mm-hmm.
influenced Lynch and other people. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Kenneth
Yeah.
Anger is really the one. As far as I know, I think he's the first one to use like 60s,
Oh, yeah,
50s
yeah.
or early 60s music in one of his like shorts,
Mm-hmm.
like pop songs, and it's like this Americana shit juxtaposed or laid over like gay fucking bikers and sailors and shit like that.
That's a trip.
Yeah, and so, and that touches on fucking like this Americana with this like underworld or the subculture or whatever, and then that really fits in with Scorsese and his New York mafia shit, and also like David Lynch with his like underbelly of America shit. So and for this film, it's just very much like to see, like Linklater's talked about, a lot of what he remembers of the 70s was like everything that happened was just kind of like not as just driving around looking for stuff to happen. Um, and and the things that are happening in between
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
and the soundtrack of that is fucking music that suits that, which is fucking music that sounds like it's good for being in a car and driving um in some fucking American city. um and so much revolves around riding, the word ride or slow ride or free ride or whatever fucking and 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 we'll touch on that next week. But this has been nostalgic to look at the nostalgia and the anti nostalgia and all of it. And now we're in the fucking 600s in terms of episodes of this shit that we do. And again, if you like what we do, if it hits you, hit us back at buymeacoffee.com/watch Rick Ramos. That's buymeacoffee.com/watch Rick Ramos. Thanks for everybody that's listened, participated, contributed, kept us caffeinated, all of it. LIVIN. Till next time.